can offer him the most, 5 years, $190 million. The Clippers, 4 years, $141 million. The Lakers, if this gets agreed on before the AD trade starts to execute, $138 million. So they're already on the lowest end. After the AD trade goes through, then it drops down to $127 million. Now that's over 4 years. It's a couple million a year. And really, though, this isn't a case of the Lakers, being able to say, hey, Pelicans, can you just wait on the deal? Because there's been so many dominoes since then. You have the Pelicans, Lakers, Hawks, Sixers, Pistons, Grizzlies, Jazz involved. Someone computed in our research department, it's 8 teams, 21 total players. These trades are going to start to go. Yeah. And when you trade back, explain why the salaries aren't quite equivalent.
So the Lakers are trying to sign the guy quiet to space. And then, remember, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, those guys, right? As of today, it's still Lakers. So when you trade those pieces out for Anthony Davis makes more than all those guys combined. So when you bring them in, that eats up the cap space that you have. So that's why it's important to go out, make the signing first, and then do the trade. Otherwise, you're in a situation where you have less money than you even originally anticipated to give to Kawhi Leonard. Now, you could say, even if it was just one team, the Pelicans, you say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you hold off on doing this deal until Kawhi decides? Why would the Pelicans do that? They're not here to do you favors. Like I said earlier, it's like 50 Cent. I want my money, and I want it on July 6th. I'm not here to wait for you guys to figure it out, right? So, obviously, when you make 8 teams involved, then there is no wherewithal for people to hold off until you get your ducks in a row. And that's why the important thing here, Rachel, is the 4 years or the 5 years versus a 3-year deal. If Kawhi Leonard decides, hey, I want a short-term deal, a 2-year deal with an option on the third, so that I can come back as a 10-year vet and get the maximum max in a larger salary cap year, then that helps the Lakers so that they don't have to worry about his decision.
Coming up so short.
Yeah. But if he wants 4 years, then that obviously that $11 million makes a difference.
I wanted these guys to jump in on how they feel Kawhi's handled this so far. But first, I do want you to tell your story about what you learned about Kawhi's college recruiting, because it gives some information to what's happening here.
So on our radio show on SiriusXM NBA, the No Look Pass, we interviewed Steve Fisher.
Is that a plug?
That
is a plug. Absolutely.
I'm just checking.
100%.
Great job.
Because I'm working for them downstairs. But Steve Fisher, who coached Kawhi at San Diego State, said, Coach, how'd you get him to San Diego State? He said, well, we offered him first before all the other Pac-12 schools came around and figured out he was good. He said, but the other thing was, if it were up to Kawhi, the decision would still be going right now. He'd still be wondering what college he should go to. And it really was the influence of his family members around him that said, hey, I think San Diego State's the right place to be. The moral of the story isn't that Uncle Dennis or his mom are going to be making the decision. It's that Kawhi is a methodical, very thorough decision maker. He doesn't make a quick decision or a rash decision. And so here we are. It's been 5 days. He's taking his time. And the last thing was, of course, Jason Dumas, a reporter, who said, hey, when he committed to San Diego State, they didn't know he was going to play for them until he showed up for summer school, because he wouldn't text them back for weeks. So again, this is a guy, he's about his own business, he's about his privacy, and he's about making the decision that he wants to make on his timeline.
Well, guys, training camp starts at the end of September. I hope we're not waiting until then to be sure. As players, what do you think about the way Kawhi has played this?
I think, respectfully, like it's his decision. You know, I think this is life-altering. Like, people talk about the basketball concept of it, and obviously East to West Coast, but, you know, one wants to play back home, or you go back where you won a title. You know, and you won a title, you're tied, you know, to that. There's an emotional piece to that, and then you also have the back home, which you've been home for so long. So I don't feel any type of way. I feel like it's his right to take his time, and obviously we're gonna, the guy's gonna track him and find him. But, like, you know, I feel like he should be able to take his time. If he wants to wait to the end of July, then so
and I agree with him. I think, you know, he's earned the right to take his time, and you know, you think down the line sometimes. You think short term, or you think down the line. Is this decision the right one now for later, or and all these things? Right. So hence the 2-year or 4-year. But he's earned the right to wear whatever he wants to do. I mean, obviously he holds us all hostage until. You know,
I mean, you literally, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
teams
a lot of
waiting, and 100%. There's teams waiting to see if they're the ones that don't get to Kawhi.
If they miss out,
they have cap space for guys like you.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug yesterday. I did hear that.
Plug in today.
Hey, I heard that yesterday. I was like, oh, look at she's working.
Looking out for you.
But no, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's just at this point.
Look at all these people, by the way.
Exactly.
I love
Everybody
our producer
waiting.
Tucker worked up the Photoshop. All these
Look at
people
Ferg
waiting
in
on
limbo.
Kawhi's decision.
You see Vince in the back?
Yeah.
This is so
But
good.
that's what it's about. So I think he's sitting home like, and maybe he does know his decision. Like, you know what, 5th, 6th, 12th, it doesn't matter to him because he's gonna pick it whenever he's ready.
The only caveat I would make to all of that, and of course, the bottom line is it's his call. It's his life, as you point out,
Yeah.
Donovan. It's not just where he's going to play. It's where he's going to live. It's where he's raising his kids. The only caveat I would say is if he would like to go play with the Lakers, the longer he waits, the more he is hampering them on adding those extra pieces on the team he would be playing for, right? So if he's sort of making them wait and then doesn't pick him, hey, they knew they had the risk of waiting for him, and that's on them.
Yep.
But if he is going to join that team, I assume he wants that team to be as good as possible. And I wonder, if by waiting and waiting, not only do we see the cap space is going to shrink, but also the guys around them and the vets that might decide, okay, yeah, I'll play for the vet minimum, but I'm going to do it somewhere else because I got to make a call here.
Well, I think that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is he's going to lose money. That's the most tangible thing he does by waiting. Because once that deal goes through, instantly the Lakers
If he
money.
picks the Lakers.
If he picks the Lakers. That's what we're saying in this situation, that he picks the Lakers, but he takes his time doing it. He's losing money, as we showed on that graphic. But in terms of the vets, this guy's waiting. Marcus Morris is waiting. Like, Danny Green obviously depends on where he goes. All these guys are waiting. So, and we know one thing for sure: the Lakers are only going to have two types of contracts to offer. They have one $4.8 million room exception to offer to somebody, and then everybody else is minimum. They already signed Troy Daniels. They already agreed to terms with Jared Dudley. Both of those guys are minimum, so
So you could do that now.
they could do that now. They could get Vince on minimum right now if they wanted to. Now, Vince might have other options that he's waiting for because other teams are saying, well, we don't get
If we
Kawhi.
strike out, we have to go
Exactly.
elsewhere.
We have to go another way.
So in many ways, we're all waiting.
Yeah.
He's the domino, and none of these other players can make decisions until Kawhi makes his.
Do you know who doesn't have to wait at all? Donovan
guy?
Mitchell.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely. We are going to flight track Donovan because you're going to China.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flight track you just like we're tracking Kawhi. And I'm going to alert the Chinese media. They're going to know when you land. Before you
they're
go,
going to know. You don't have to.
I
alert them.
probably
They're
don't
going
think
to
we'll
know.
already know. Before you go,
know.
can we get the shoes? Because I want to say you did not in any. Bring them on here. It's all good. I'm sorry that I got to show this here because, look, these are so cool. These are a collaboration with Adidas and Marvel. Shout out to our little Disney company there. But these are so great.
Yeah,
You had fun doing them?
Man, this was such a blessing, and to have that. Obviously, the theme around this movie, Spider-Man, we have different colorways coming out, but to have my own shoe, man, it's something you dream about, but it never is a reality for you. And then when I found out, well, first off, when I found out, I had to be quiet for a year.
They're so
I had to be
killer
quiet about it
looking.
for a year.
Kawhi Leonard style.
I had to be quiet. So that was the hardest part. But then when I was able to go through the process and be able to do it, I just released the stores today.